Wait, I've got one more minute, and then we'll get started. Actually, 15 seconds.
I'm multitasking this morning. I've got another meeting on my headphones.
All right, well, thanks for joining us, Bill. So, all right, it is 10 o'clock, so welcome. And as always, thank you for joining us today for our State Building Code Council meeting. We've got, let me get situated here. Standard, oh, swap, okay. Stoyan, do you mind going through roll call for us?
Krista will do it.
Hey, Andrew Klein.
I am here.
Anthony Mashmet. Jay Arnold.
Here.
Al French.
Here.
Jim Milbauer.
Present.
Robert Graper. Tony Doan.
Here.
Chell Anderson. Phil Lemley.
Good morning, everyone. I'm present.
Corey Wilker.
Present.
Bob Hamlin. Caroline Traub.
Here.
Micah Chappelle.
Present.
Todd Bayreuther.
Here.
So we do have a quorum. Representative Alex Ramel. Representative Larry Hoff.
Here.
Senator Linda Wilson. Senator Joe Nguyen. Lauren Lathrop.
Here.
And Dave Merchant is our Assistant Attorney General for the day.
I am here.
All right, thank you, Krista. Would any members of the public like to introduce themselves? That's okay if no one does. So, all righty. Let's move on to reviewing and approving the agenda. Does anyone have any comments on the agenda? Any additions or modifications? Would anyone like to make a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Micah. Is there a second?
Second, Jim Milbauer.
Thanks, Jim. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anybody? Anyone opposed? And motion passes. Stoyan, and Derek. I don't see Derek on.
Dave will be our Assistant Attorney General for today.
Okay. Do we have need for an executive session?
Yes, sir.
All righty. Let me read our script so that we're compliant with. How long do you think we need?
Dave?
Oh, I think 15 to 30 minutes, somewhere in there.
Let's do 30 minutes so that we don't have to come back and extend. Again, I'm going to try my best not to have to extend. So let's do 30 minutes. So let me read off the script and then we'll break for that. So the council will now meet in executive session to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation to which the agency is or may be a party when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequence to the agency as allowed by RCW 42.30.110(1)(I). The council will be in executive session until 10:35 a.m. The council is expected to take further action following the executive session. So thank you, and we'll see you in about a half an hour.
We need to leave this meeting and I will admit you for the second one, for the executive session.
Sounds good. Thank you, Stuart. All right, we'll give it a few seconds till we get started, but I'll officially call the regular meeting back to order now. Thank you for your patience while we chatted in executive session. So Micah, are you in here yet?
Yep.
All right, so we are up on, let's see, public comment on items not on the agenda. Did you want to bring your item up as a public comment now, or did you want to bring it up under other business?
Let's bring it up under other business, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. So I think we've actually, Krista, do you mind going through quickly, making sure we have a quorum back?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Andrew Klein,
I'm here.
Anthony Mashmet, Jay Arnold,
Here.
Al French,
Here.
Jim Milbauer,
Present.
Robert Graper,
Present.
Tony Doan,
Here.
Chell Anderson,
Present.
Phil Lemley,
I am present.
Corey Wilker,
Here.
Bob Hamlin, Caroline Traub,
Here.
Micah Chappelle,
Present.
Todd Bayreuther.
Here.
Okay, so we have a quorum and gained a couple of members.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so we're on to item number 4, public comment on items not on the agenda. Now's time to speak up if you'd like to bring anything up. Going once, going twice. All right, let's review and approve the September and October summary minutes. So we'll take a look at September. Yeah, let's do 2 motions. So we'll do a motion for September and then a second one for October.
Motion for September approval of minutes.
Thank you, Micah.
Second, this is Charles, second.
Thank you, Shell. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Was there a comment in there before we? Okay. So anyone opposed? Motion passes. Now the October minutes.
Motion to approve October minutes.
Thank you, Micah.
Second, this is Tony.
Thank you, Tony. All those in favor, please, or any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And is anyone opposed? Motion passes. So, all right, group 2 timeline modification of the schedule. Stoyan, did you want to go through that?
Yes. Krista, can you show the schedule? Yeah. Okay. So unfortunately, we don't have specific dates to propose at this time because we haven't submitted the CR 102 in all proposals yet, and it takes time. So when you see in the left column in October 2021, the plan was to submit the CR 102 and the initial proposals by October 20th, 2021. And we didn't do that because first we started almost 2 months later. We didn't have the model codes. And then we are experiencing some issues with the extra work we need to do. So we are not done yet. This is for group 1 codes, okay? So when you see on the right column, this is for group 2 codes, and we are late with group 2 codes because we haven't completed group 1. So for group 2, we started with structural provisions in IBC. We have the existing building code. We started with this, discussing the existing amendments and the significant changes, but the rest of the codes, we are nowhere. So we will update the schedule. Again, we don't have specific dates today. So consider this agenda item for your information, but we keep working on the dates. So when we submit the CR 102s, we'll have better idea when we can have the public hearings. So we can modify the schedule at that time. So I assume we will have a complete schedule by the meeting in January.
All right, thank you, Stoyan. Micah, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, just a quick comment. Since the agenda indicates we need to take action on this, but it sounds like we actually don't. So when it comes back, can we reflect the action from our previous meeting or the last meeting and move the WUI code into the title of group 2? Please.
I think that sounds reasonable. Stoyan, any reason we can't?
I don't see any reason.
Okay. Jay?
As we go into public hearings on especially the energy code, I expect that we'll get a lot of public comments. I'm new to this process. Is this something that normally is handled within our regularly scheduled monthly meetings, or are we potentially looking at special meetings to deal with public comments in the first quarter of 2022?
I don't think we'll likely need any special meetings. You know, again, we'll see what happens. We'll likely extend meetings if necessary. Stoyan, what are your thoughts? I don't think in the past we've called special meetings because of additional testimony.
Can I use my wild card? I'm new with that. I'm just kidding. So I had a concern about having the public hearings for all codes at one time, because you know, looking back to the experience we had with the energy code, so I didn't want to derail the process with the rest of the code. So I don't have the answer yet. The council staff, we are discussing this almost every day,
Great. Well, my only suggestion is that if any special hearings are proposed, that we can get some options out to Building Code Council members early, so we can identify when we would have maximum participation.
Okay.
we will try to do that.
And Jay, I believe in the January meeting, we'll go through a proposed schedule for the year and when our meetings will be. So I think at that point, we might have a better idea if we plan to, you know, those will be the regularly scheduled meetings, but if we think there might be lots of testimony where we want to put in a couple others, we can do it at that point. So they're not special meetings. Would that be correct, Stoyan, Krista?
I think well, I'm trying not to make any suggestions at that time, because the workload and the process, where we are in the process. It's true, in January we'll have our schedule for the entire year, and the plan was to complete these public hearings before January, but as I said, we couldn't do it. Keep in mind, only Krista's package is over 800 pages, only code proposals, without talking about, you know, cost benefit analysis and all other documents that are needed. So, you know, whatever I say today, I may need to change it in a week or two. So I don't want to make false statements.
Okay, but Jay, we'll do our best to make sure that, you know, there's plenty of time and participation, you know, but ultimately it'll be, you know, we try to work around staff's schedules, you know, but they should be the most open. But yeah, well, there'll be plenty of time to work that out.
And we'll try to keep the website updated with, you know, the comments we're receiving.
Mm-hmm. So Shell?
Is changing the schedule just simply a majority vote?
I believe so. Or I don't know if it's even an action item. But
now it was proposed for action item, but again, we couldn't submit. We couldn't file the CR 102s, so we don't have specific dates. So I didn't want to make you vote on a schedule and then ask you again to change it in January.
Yeah, and I guess since we were supposed to approve this, you know, a year ago or something like it, we approved this like a year ago.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if modifying it is a simple majority vote, or if there's some other process that we need to follow to modify the schedule.
In my opinion, it's simple majority.
We'll check with Dave to make sure, but
we will double check that. Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you for bringing it up. We'll make sure that we follow procedure. Micah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with a lot of the sentiment of extra meetings or extra time. Based on the information and feedback I'm getting from my overall network, there's going to be a ton of comments on the energy code, probably more so than we had just for it moving forward to further public comment. I guess my question is, are we specifically tied to the 4-hour meeting schedule? Maybe we could look at extending a few meetings, at least the public comment meetings, to 6 hours instead of scheduling special meetings. And then we wouldn't have to extend the meetings, but that's just the set scheduled and publicized timeframe. And maybe that's an option.
I think that's a good idea. I think Stoyan, you and your staff will take a look at what you project will be the needs, and, you know, if, you know, we can stick to the 4 hours, we can go longer, we can have more meetings, fewer meetings, but I think by January, you'll take all that into consideration, correct?
But yeah, we will have better idea how to do that in January, by January.
My guys, that, you know, they'll consider all those options. And
yeah, I think that's fine, but I think what Al alluded to is we would probably like to get that information before January based on scheduling. There's a lot of us that have a lot of stuff scheduled way out in advance. And I think that's what Al was indicating as well. And I don't want to put words in Al's mouth. So maybe he can verify that that's what he was intending, is stuff gets scheduled out. And if you're waiting until January to schedule stuff in February, that may be too short.
We can send to all council members some options for the meetings throughout 2022 before the meeting in January. You know, the January is the due date because we have to do the schedule for the year, but again, we will be gaining more information next week, the week after. So the dates depends, but we will have the information and we will share the information with you prior to the January meeting.
All right, thank you, Stoyan. Jim, floor is yours.
Thank you, Andrew. Stoyan, I get quite a few emails or calls, but so I want to make sure I'm clear. So there'll be no public hearing, written testimony for Group 1 this year, and most likely will fall into January, possibly February timeframe, and you will put that out after we go through this process.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
For this meeting, I know we didn't meet the October due date, but for this meeting, I didn't know when. I assume it will be in January, but I didn't want to assume and make you vote on the schedule and then change it again. So when we complete the package, we send it to the code revisor's office, and these folks, they are reviewing everything, and you know, just a very brief summary, and they will send it back. But they need time to work on our packages as well. So it's, you know, when it leaves our hands, we cannot predict how much time these folks will have to put our package together. So it's all related.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the schedule here? It's up. All righty, let's move on.
Point of order.
Yep, Micah.
That item was open for public comment. Did you want to request any of that?
Yes, thank you. Any public comment on that? All righty, but thank you, Micah, for that. Okay, let's move on to EV proposals. So I guess the question, Stoyan and I had chatted about what exactly was the council direction. My understanding is the council direction. So Larry wanted to comment on, yeah, we didn't get into this too much. So Larry, go ahead. He wanted to comment on the previous item. Are you on?
I think he.
Let's see. Well, Larry, when either you're on mute or I don't think I see your name up here, but you're clearly on if you're texting. All right, we'll move on. Larry, speak up, you know, if you're able to and when you're able to, but yeah, we'll move on until you're able to speak, and you can bring that up too in the other business toward the end. So, all right. So my understanding for the EV proposals is Stoyan, I'll let you now.
Okay.
I thought
I have I have counter offer for the EV proposal.
Okay.
Krista, can you let me share my screen? Thank you. So for the EV, I want to separate those things. So it's true. Staff was asked to reach out to legislature and ask for intent. We did. Unfortunately, there is not a formal process that we were able to use, so we didn't get any formal answer. And this morning, Representative Romel sent an email, and it was sent to you, I believe, just a few minutes ago. But I will share his opinion here. And in a summary, what he's saying is the intent wasn't to address 1 and 2 family dwellings, but the council can go above and beyond what was required in HB 1287, so the council can adopt requirements for 1 and 2 family dwellings. So here is the email, but I wanted to concentrate on the proposal for the International Building Code only and leave the International Residential Code and 1 and 2 family dwellings for the IRC technical advisory groups and the following meetings. I wanna have this proposal. This is my request for you. If we can agree on something, and if we can add it to the CR 102 and have it posted for 2 months comment period. If we receive comments and we believe that this proposal is not ready yet, we can withdraw the proposal and we can have, we'll have 1 more year to work on it. I didn't want to start with another off-cycle rulemaking and get crunched between, the energy code and other proposals and compromise with the time and the testimony and the comments we receive from our stakeholders. So this is why I developed several options for EV charging infrastructure for the building code. I had a very brief discussion with Micah and Joe yesterday, and I can show you what I have. And I also have questions for the council members, simple questions, yes, no. This will give me some idea what the direction is, and whatever the decision is, I will modify the proposals. But just with a general recommendation, go back to TAG. I felt like I wasn't getting enough direction, so I didn't know how to modify the proposal. If it's
First, let me address a comment that was put in chat. Annabelle said, to clarify, this looks like it specifically says that the intent was to address single family and that the legislation allows for this. I would disagree. I'd say yes, the legislation allows for it, but the intent was not to address single family, only R3 in the building code. Stoyan, would you agree with that assessment?
This is, if you can see on the screen, this is the summary from Representative Romel.
Okay.
He was the sponsor of the bill. It got modified in the Senate, not in the House. And R3 was eliminated. We don't have any for 1 and 2 family dwellings. There are different interpretations on this. And again, for this meeting, I wanted to keep 1 and 2 family dwellings aside, trying to move forward with something for the building code only.
Okay, Annabelle, go ahead, so that I'm not speaking for you.
Would you mind scrolling up a bit, Stoyan?
Yes.
A little bit farther. There's 2 bullet points that were originally kind of displayed when you pulled this up. So 1 and 2, council staff asked about these two things. And I think from what I can initially kind of glance over, I think it might be misrepresenting Representative Rammel's email to say that he doesn't think the intent was to include single family and 2-family dwellings. It sounds like he actually thinks that that was the intent, but that it wasn't necessarily like explicit because of the issue with R3.
Can you point
I just wanted to clarify that.
Can you point to the language that leads you to believe that? Because I see the opposite from where and how I read it. Maybe you need to scroll down a little, Stoyan.
If I know where to start.
The way I read it, he's pretty explicit. It does not include single family homes.
Yes, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that wasn't their intent, is what I'm trying to. It seems like he also highlights a little bit higher up, it looks like, the direction to exceed minimum requirements for all residential and commercial buildings. So just because it doesn't explicitly require single family and like 2-family dwellings doesn't mean that that wasn't the intent. And I don't see in what's displayed him saying that, like, I don't think he says it was not the intent of the legislature to require this. Like, so I just wanted to clarify so that there wasn't any sort of like misrepresentation of this.
All right, thank you.
I didn't want to use a representative from L's email as something that will make me do or not to do anything. It's his personal opinion, and he was involved from the beginning with this bill, and I decided to share it because he's not attending the meeting. He was busy with something else, and this email is the same as, if he was here, he would share the same information.
All right, thank you. Can you scroll up just a little, Stoyan, again? Sure.
Here?
Sure. A little more. Maybe it wasn't your question. Go. The bill. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm sorry, Annabelle. What I was saying when when I thought that he was explicitly saying that it did not, I was reading council's question. So yes, you're correct. Sorry. Leah, floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to, agree with what Annabelle was saying about Representative Rammel's interpretation of the legislative intent. I also wanted to flag, I pulled up my notes from the floor debate on this specific amendment, as well as emails corresponding with the amendment sponsor. And it was very clear in both the floor debate and in those emails that the intent was to cover all new residential construction. So I'm happy to send a link to the floor debate or anything like that to help clarify. I understand that the legislature does not have a formal process to retroactively explain their intent that would require a full vote. But I do want to be very clear that the overarching bill is intending to support electric vehicle adoption across the board. On November 30th, Washington is going to be covered by the zero emission vehicle mandate, which is going to require a very rapid increase in electric vehicles. And so I think it's pretty clear the intent of this bill was to cover all residential buildings. And I have, notes and emails and floor debate to sort of complement what Representative Rammel was saying in this email. So again, just wanted to contribute that and be very clear about this.
All right, thank you. And Leah, correct me if I'm wrong. My memory is, yes, we were talking and we were assuming that it was the intent. Stoyan had stated that he believed it was the intent, but then we asked for, specifically at the last meeting, we asked for, an actual interpretation from the authors of the bill of whether or not it was the intent, and then this came out of that.
Yep, I understand. Yep, and I believe my interpretation of the email is, Alex is acknowledging there was an intent there, but it was not clearly written, unfortunately. So that's the heart of the issue here. Yep.
All right, thank you. Al,
yep.
Go ahead, floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. With regard to the legislation and what becomes law and what doesn't, it's not really the authors of the bill, it's what the body elects to approve and stuff. And so I'm just real uncomfortable with trying to go back and second guess what the intent of a legislative body is based upon what the author of the bill was. We don't know how and why the body voted the way it did, and if there were other considerations that were part of that debate and stuff. So I'm not sure that this really has helped us. I mean, if the law is written, interpret it and follow it, but otherwise don't second guess it is my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
This is why for this meeting, I want to keep the residential 1 and 2 family dwellings away. We're on the International Building Code. I mean, it's up to you. What do you want to discuss? But
yeah, remember all this is headed toward Stoyan making a recommendation of how we proceed, and then we say yes, that's in line with what we did at the last meeting or not. So I just want everyone to know what the purpose of all this is for why we're discussing this. So go ahead, Shelley.
I totally agree with Al and others. I think guessing at legislative intent is just a fool's path, and we need to go by the letters and the words in the legislation that was passed that directs us to do something. So I completely agree with that, and we could talk a lot about intent, but ultimately everybody who voted for it or voted against it had their own intent about it and may have wanted this or that in it, or which is why they voted for it or against it. So I think it's really difficult and challenging, and could take a lot of time if we try and talk about intent on this bill. I think we need to take the letter of the words in the RCW and then apply that to code as best we can.
Thank you, Shell. Kathleen, did you want to speak still? Your hand was up.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, I just would like to, I'm eager to hear Stoyan's proposal, and would just like to also provide a comment that proposal 196, once it was revised, kind of held its own. And so if, depending on how today's conversation results, whatever the outcome is, potentially I would like to request that we separate the two proposals once again and go back and look at 196 in its own merit, so it can proceed forward possibly. And so that's my comment. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that can move forward through the IRC. So
if we can move to the IBC again, I wanna show you the proposal. I have several options, and I have options because I didn't want to make modifications on the floor. It's easier to eliminate options if the council members don't like something. So give me a couple of minutes to explain. So we had new 1 and 2 family dwellings in the initial proposal, and I changed it. And I changed it because I was trying to stay away from 1 and 2 family dwellings, and this section is in the building code, IBC. 1 and 2 family dwellings doesn't exist as a term there. The term used in IBC is buildings that do not contain more than 2 dwelling units. That is in the building code. So here is the proposal. I eliminated 1 and 2 family dwellings, and I have 2 options. Buildings that do not contain more than 2 dwelling units. And the second option is just say dwelling units with private garages. And private garage is also a term that is defined in the building code. And there is also a section in chapter 4 that clarifies a private garage is no longer than 1,000 square feet. We'll get there. So here is the proposal for, to eliminate again 1 and 2 family dwellings. And when talking to Micah and Chell, they had some ideas that I try to incorporate here as options too. Okay, so option 1 for this table that was in the previous proposal, we have.
Stoyan, may I interrupt?
Yes, sir.
Do you want us to ask questions as you go through this, or wait?
Let me introduce everything, and then I can answer questions.
Okay, could I request? I thought there was a third option.
Yes,
of not having that 429.3.2 and 3 section. Okay, you were just saying there's only 2 options there, but there is a third, and it's
only
not
2
having
options.
those in there at all.
Yes,
okay,
only two options if we go with 429.2, and I'll clarify the connection between 429.2 and the tables I'm going to show. Okay?
Thank you, appreciate that.
So here is the table. We require. It was in the previous proposal too. So we require. I'll concentrate on the residential because it seems this is the issue. We require 10% of the parking spaces to have a charger installed, and we require 25% of the total parking spaces to be EV ready, which means a receptacle outlet. So 25% with receptacle outlet, 10% with EV charger. Here is the other one. We go further than that. We require 10% of the total spaces with EV chargers. We require 25% with receptacle outlet, plus 10% with, let's say, conduit. It's EV capable space. That means you will have additional, this is 45%, you need to take into account this when you calculate the electrical system. Okay, so it starts with the distribution system, transformer, and the electrical service. Here is the table that Micah was talking about. So this is the option 3. We can use option 3 with or without this. Okay, so I prefer having a text without a table, but you know, the table works too. Here is the deal. Group R occupancies are separated. So buildings that do not contain more than 2 dwelling units. These are the duplexes. No electric vehicle charger is required. And we need 1 EV ready with receptacle outlet only, 1 40 amp receptacle for each dwelling unit. Dwelling units with private garages, any with private garage. No EV charging station, no EV charger is required. 1 receptacle outlet, 40 amp receptacle outlet for each garage. And everything else here, it's the same way. It's another option when we have all three here with EV charger, EV ready parking space, and EV capable parking space. It won't affect buildings with up to 2 dwelling units, and it won't affect dwelling units with private garages. So this is all I have. And again, based on how the conversation goes, I will start eliminating options that the council members don't like.
So can I do a straw poll here? Go ahead, Joe.
I guess just maybe you were about to do this, Andrew. I was wondering if we could vote on the type of option we want before we vote on the numbers in the option.
That's exactly what I was going to do. So tell me if this is what you had in mind. I'd like to do a straw poll. Who would like to have language that is the minimum that's required by legislature, as opposed to going above and beyond what's absolutely required? Can I get out of the council members, can I get a show of hands who would like to do just what's required by legislature?
And point of order, just to clarify, Andrew, this is moving it forward into CR 102, or this is? No,
this is a straw. Well, yes. Well, actually, Stoyan, yeah, we still have time to move this through CR 102, and it can go through that process as opposed to having to be an emergency rule because it was required by the legislature, correct?
It won't be emergency, but it will be off-cycle rulemaking.
Okay, off-cycle rulemaking. Does that answer your question, Shell?
Yeah, so just so everybody's clear on the straw poll, it's to move it forward into a public comment process. It is not to enact it as final rulemaking. Right?
Well, no, the straw poll is what we move forward for this. Do we want just the minimum that's required by the legislature, by law, that we have to do, or do we want to go above and beyond? And then from there, you know, it'll go through the process it needs to, but that's what I want to know. And then from there, we can pull the language together that we need. So yeah, straw poll, please raise your hand if you want to move forward just what's required without going above and beyond what is required for this off-cycle rulemaking.
So, Andrew, I hate to throw a monkey wrench in your straw poll. I think you should clarify that further. It's not necessarily that I don't want to go above and beyond. I don't want to go above and beyond with this specific piece of code change. I believe that we could go above and beyond with a separate piece of code change for the
normal rulemaking cycle.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Yes. This is just for this, what we're doing. They were required to, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah. Off cycle. So who,
the statute is really unclear, and you know, it says the rules adopted under this section must exceed the specific minimum requirements established under subsection 2. Subsection 2 is the language that was just adopted, became effective a couple of months ago. So it's kind of.
Story, my memory of that was we were required like 2% of employee parking spaces to have to be, you know, and by doing that, we were, you know, above.
We were above, yes.
So, yeah. Okay, if you lower your hands, anyone that thinks with this off-cycle rulemaking, you want to go above and beyond, you know, what we think is the minimum required by the words of the law. Jay, Todd, Shell, you've got a thumbs up. Is that okay? Hand up. Phil, I think you voted twice, but you know, you can change your vote. Caroline. All right, maybe this wasn't so good. Maybe we need, instead of straw polls, we'll make a motion eventually. Stoyan, are you ready for someone to make a motion?
So I have a few questions here that I thought the council can use.
I think Stoyan and Andrew, I think we need to discuss your proposal further before we actually try to answer these questions and look for a motion.
Well, the question is, what proposal do we discuss? So I was trying to rule out, you know, if we just wanted to do what's required by law, then we can rule a lot of the stuff out and go back. I would say go back to the language that came out of the tag, you know, for this.
I guess some of that would be answered with the proposed changes we put together here.
Mr. Chair, from my perspective, I'd rather vote on the code language method first and then the numbers. I think that would eliminate.
When you say code language method, you mean what do you mean by that?
The Stoyan's options, irrespective of the numbers in the tables, the option 1, option 2, and then the other table that we worked up yesterday, those things, and then later we could vote on or discuss whether we're exceeding the minimums or not. I guess that's how I think that would be a productive way to move forward.
If I can propose something, so let's agree on the terms. Let's start with this option 1 and option 2 and agree on the terms that we'll be using. So further we'll get to the table. So again, the language here, you see the language here, and the numbers in the table, they're identical. Well, not verbatim, but the requirements are the same. So we have buildings that don't contain more than 2 dwelling units and townhouses versus dwelling units with private garages. And I personally prefer dwelling units with private garages.
Is that how the law was written? Dwelling units with private garages?
No, no. I'm trying to address dwelling units with garages because the easiest part to do is to add a 40 amp breaker there in the garage. Otherwise, we will need to cover 10% of these garages. That's if you read the bill correctly. The initial proposal was 1 and 2 family dwellings and townhouses with attached garages, and I modified it, and so now we have dwelling units with private garages. That's all. With dwelling units with private garages, this will be 100% coverage.
All right, Micah, go ahead.
So with the discussion that I had with Chael and Stoyan yesterday, my argument is these sections that are option 1, option 2, and even the 429.3, they're not necessary. It's additional charging language. If you wouldn't mind scrolling up, Stoyan, the charging language of this section already applies to R3. Anything that falls within the building code would have to meet this requirement. And therefore that additional language of further clarifying where this applies is not necessary. I believe that we did address or try to address that in the table where it talks about, one of the concerns was if you build a 1 and 2 family dwelling or townhouse out of the IBC, how does this section apply? And that's where we got into using the R occupancy information, which is in the furthest left-hand column under occupancy. That's the information that comes from the R occupancy out of the building code. This will send you or direct you on what you would have to provide for those 1 and 2 families and townhouses that a designer chooses to put under the building code.
That's if they use the table, but there are options of not using this table. Correct, Stoyan?
No.
No, there would not be an option of not using that table. You have to meet this requirement based on the charging language of 429. My discussion with Chael and Stoyan was that additional language is not necessary. It's just extra charging language that it's just fluff. It's additional code for no reason.
All right, so then we'll add that as a third option. So I would like to go through, Stoyan leading us. That's right. Why we hired him to do that. I'd like
that was the third option I mentioned when he was on this language, was this language goes away.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, we'll say we've got 3 options there. So
I started with option 1 and option 2 because I wanted to clarify the terms. Because when you get to the table version that Micah requested, I'm using the same terms. Buildings that don't contain more than 2 dwelling units and dwelling units with private garages.
And I'm going to give the credit to the table to Chael. He came up with that yesterday.
Yes, Chael, sorry. Chael and Mike, I spoke with them. I don't have issues with the table. I just, some code users don't like tables, others do. I don't have a preference. I don't have a preference.
Does everyone understand what we'll be voting on and what the issue is, whether it's redundant or not? And whether or not you want a redundancy if you believe it's redundant. Does anyone have any clarifying questions on that? All right, let's go back up and we'll vote, or we'll take a motion. We'll further discuss if there is, and then we'll take a motion for what to do up there between options 1, 2, and an option 3 of just getting rid of that language entirely.
So again, the regulatory effect in this charging language, as Micah is calling it, and the numbers in this table are the same. Mm-hmm. So once you have it in a table and here you have it just spelled out. The same requirement, different approach.
But Stoyan, you believe it should be in there just because some people don't like tables.
I wanted to provide options. I wanted to provide options for the council to decide. You represent different stakeholder groups, so it shouldn't be up to one person to decide that.
All right. My personal decision is if it's all exactly the same, let's strike it, because then no one can interpret it differently. I've dealt with many people many times that interpret things, on two opposite ends of the spectrum. Because that's the way the English language is. So that's my suggestion, that we get rid of it because it's in the table. But any further discussion before someone makes a motion? Shell? You're on mute still.
You're muted.
Yes, there's language in option 1 and option 2 that is not necessarily in the table about 208, 240. If we adopt the table, that language would go somewhere else.
If we adopt the table, that language will go, let's see, right here. Okay,
great. I like the table. I'm a visual person, and it's easier to read tables than it is language from my perspective.
Okay, Micah? Ready to make a motion?
Sorry, I was on mute. I'm in the other document. I'm with you. And like I said, I think it covers it in the charging language. When you read the charging language, if you'll scroll up to the top, Stoyan, real fast, it clearly covers what we want to cover. It says this shall apply to the construction of new buildings and accessory structures. Option 1 and option 2 says it shall apply to these structures and private garages. Well, it already applies to those. So I agree with you, Andrew. It's not necessary. It's covered below. So I would make that motion to strike the language of 429.2.
So we're going with option 3. That will be striking 429.3 as well, or just 2?
Let's stick with 429.2 at the time, because I don't believe we've addressed the exceptions to 429.3, and those may have to be relocated to make sure that information is captured.
429.3 is needed. I'll modify the language a little bit, but we need this section to make the connection to tables. And so 429.3 is better.
Okay. Do we have a second for Micah's motion?
Second. Yeah, I'll second it with assumed renumbering of sections if we're striking 429.2.
All right, any further discussion? Al, go ahead. Micah, your hand's still up. Keep it up if you want it to be up, but otherwise.
Nope, sorry.
Go ahead, Al.
So I just want to make sure I understand the motion. So the intent is that single family and duplex then are not included as part of this section. Is that what we're saying?
No, they are included right here. So we don't have the section in the charging language. We have everything in the table.
Yeah.
Can I clarify that?
Yeah, in a second. But this is the building code. Remember, so single family and duplex built with the IRC are not affected.
Yes. Sorry, I misunderstood the question.
Yes. Go ahead,
this is everything that is addressed in the International Building Code. Only.
You said exactly what I was going to say, Andrew. This does not affect 1 and 2 families unless an applicant decides to build those out of the building code. Then it would apply.
Mm-hmm. So over 3 stories.
To make it so this is from the International Building Code. The text from the International Building Code. The IBC applies to all occupancies, including 1 and 2 family dwellings and townhouses that are not within the scope of the IRC. So here we're talking about all residential occupancies that are not within the scope of the International Residential Code. So we'll keep the IRC aside.
Yep. Caroline, go ahead.
Yeah, and Micah, within your motion, you are retaining the option for either option 3 or 4, either of those tables to be further considered.
Yes, this has nothing to do with those tables. We haven't gotten down to those yet. This is just striking that language that was shown up top.
Great. Yes, I like the tables. I find them clearer than the language written there.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, let's take a vote. We'll try with a voice vote. Phil, did you have a question or comment? Okay. Oh, I guess he was voting. We'll try for a voice vote. If we get more than 1 or 2 nays, we'll do a roll call vote. But everyone in favor of the motion as it was made to strike the language of what is shown as 429.2. Both of those. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? All right, motion passes. Stoyan, back to you. Lead us through this.
So 429.3, again, we need this section because we need to make the connection with the table. And 429.3 provides the exceptions. So I modified the exceptions a little bit. I got some comments, good comments about, misleading language. So here is what we have. The requirements apply to on-site parking spaces with 10 or more. And this excludes group A, E, and M occupancies because these occupancies are in exception 2. And everything else is the same. It was discussed several times, including at the last council meeting.
And just to be clear here, this 2.2 that you read, that is what we're showing that's above and beyond what's required by the law. So that's what's getting us over that threshold to be compliant.
For some scenarios, yes, it will get above and beyond. What we say here is whichever is greater. So sometimes, if you don't have many parking spaces, this 2.1 will have more EV parking spaces, and for example, group A, you will use 2.2. So this is above and beyond. Yes.
Micah, go ahead.
So I like 2.2 quite a bit. However, I do have concerns with the wording. Would that just be 1 additional for every 200 parking spaces? Or
no,
would that be, hold on, let me finish my question. Or would that be 1 for each 200 parking spaces of each type? So in other words, you're only getting 1 additional, but that may not be an additional accessible stall for EV. And I don't think that would be necessarily equitable, in my opinion, where the property owner could choose to provide it for a non-accessible space and not provide it for an accessible space. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, but the accessible spaces is dealt with further down, correct?
Yeah, we have this for the accessible spaces, and we have something in ANSI A117. So most likely this section here, where did it go?
Sure, I know it's further down, but technically we're not getting additional accessible spaces when you have to provide additional EV ready stalls.
Well, this is determining the total number, period. And then we have other language, we can change that will say how many must be accessible versus not. So
okay.
Does that make sense?
If we can address it somewhere else.
Yeah, well,
I just want to make sure we're equitable in providing the additional infrastructure. That's all.
Okay, yeah, I believe it's addressed elsewhere. So if you're patient, if it's not by the end, then we'll go back and address the issue. But this is just for the total number, and then later on,
I won't let you forget.
I would hate to be your notepad sitting there next to your computer. It's probably all scribbled on, right?
It's all in my mind, Andrew.
Wow, that's impressive. Okay, further discussion. So most of this language, like we said, is a lot of it's existing there, of what's been required, putting it all together.
Do we need a motion on that, or since it's not an option, we just leave it and move on to the next?
Let's get a motion on it.
I would move to approve this section as shown.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, this is Tony.
Thank you, Tony. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? All righty, Stoyan, back to you.
So option 1 goes away because it doesn't include. Option 1 was with 429.2 and we eliminated it, so no more option 1 here. And then option 2 goes away. I voluntarily did that. Okay, so the difference between option 3 and option 4. Option 3 has EV charging stations and EV ready parking spaces. So EV charging stations are, parking spaces with EV chargers, and EV ready parking spaces are with receptacle outlet. Option 4 has one more column. It has EV charging stations, EV ready parking spaces, and EV capable parking spaces. So this column, the middle column, the column in the middle, and the column on the right are basically a summary of what we currently have in the code. This is the addition, this column. So again, one with EV charging stations and EV ready parking spaces, and the other one is what we currently have in the code plus 10% chargers. We'll get to the rest of it after you choose option 3 or option 4.
Can you go up again to option 2? Number of EV charging stations, number of EV ready. So the 4th option adds the 3rd column?
Yes, EV capable. So these are with the conduit. So you have a conduit here. You have a complete circuit with receptacle outlet, 4 amp receptacle, and you have chargers here in the left one.
Okay, is the EV capable required for this?
The EV capable and EV ready is what we currently have in section 429, 10% EV capable, 10% EV ready. This the language is different, but this is what we require, I believe.
Okay, so why would we not want that 3rd column?
Because we are adding charging spaces. I'm sorry, we're adding EV chargers.
Ah, okay, so that takes the place, and we're no longer now required to have that additional 10%.
Yes.
Okay, that's how I interpret it. The more conservative approach that way, which would be option 3.
Yeah. So one option is keep the existing plus 10% EV chargers, or add the 10% EV chargers and eliminate the EV ready. That's
all right. And we have to have the EV ready. We couldn't make that option 3 up above the EV capable.
We can do whatever you decide. It's easy to change the table.
Well, what's required? That they be EV ready or that they be EV capable?
The bill doesn't specify that. We need to go above and beyond what we currently have, and this is what we currently have: 10% plus 10%.
Okay.
So we
went above and beyond with the 2.2 before. So I would argue we don't need to go above and beyond on anything else.
This table is the table from proposal, Kathleen's proposal 196. And when the TAC members asked me to merge these two proposals, this is what I did. This is how we ended up with the table. So
okay, and how did we end up with option 3? Was that the one that staff put together?
No. Well, yes and no at the same time. It's logical following the requirements in the table. So I'll give you an example. When we get to the residential occupancies, we have 10% with chargers, we have 25% EV ready and 10% EV capable, and you have to have 45% EV, some kind of EV parking spaces, and this 45% you need to add to the existing electric vehicle service, and you need to upgrade your service. So the difference is 10% more load on the electrical service, that's all.
So one last question, then I'll let other people talk, because maybe my question will get answered by their questions and comments. So if you go up then to option 3 one more time, we've got number of EV charging stations. That's what we're required to have, 10% in these occupancies. And then we're required to have another 10%. But are those extra 10%, is that required to be EV ready or EV capable?
EV ready, here EV ready.
But
10%.
by the legislative language?
No, this is the proposal. The existing, we adopted section 429 and it became effective end of August. And this is what we have in 429 as a summary: 10% EV ready, 10% EV capable.
Okay, so if we were to go back to option 3 and make that EV capable instead of EV ready, we could do that. We would still, you know,
we can do that.
Forward.
Yes.
Okay, that was my question. So
yes. Sorry,
okay.
I didn't get the question.
No, that's I didn't ask it well. Micah, go ahead. The floor is yours.
I believe that option 4 actually captures the requirements better and the overall information. I'm not sure that we are actually adding more than required. If we scroll down, can you scroll down? I'll keep going, Stoyan. I forgot the section number.
Down or up?
Up, down towards the bottom of the document. I always say down the document. Let's go right there.
Here?
You went a little too far. Go back up.
The electrical room and equipment?
Yeah, I think I'm looking at a different one than you have. All right, I'll be quiet for a minute, just because I think option 4 is the way to go.
All right, Jay, floor is yours.
I too support option 4. It's a bit of a challenge given that this is the first time we're looking at these documents, but the way that I read this is that if you talk about what we're doing in the in-state, if a property owner were to develop eventually the full EV capable infrastructure, we get more EV charging spaces out of option 4 than we do option 3. 10% more in both cases once those EV capable parking spaces are used. And I think if I'm reading this correctly, I think that's the direction we need to go towards the EV future and the direction to go above the minimum requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Shell.
So the arrow, I guess I agree that having a lot of EV charging stations in the future is a great idea, an important idea that we need to lower cost eventually. I guess I'm really concerned about the day one transformer size and how much we increase that, because what happens is buildings are acquired by the powers that be that to oversize transformers based on what actually they're going to use when they're in operation. And if we require them on day one to have lots of all per the language below, all chargers operating simultaneously, then we will be drastically oversizing transformers and costing projects lots of money. And often what happens is buildings go into operation and all of a sudden they have lots of spare capacity to add EV chargers at that point. So I want to make sure we're not going too far in that. So it says electrical service capacity should be able to simultaneously charge all EVs. And then I just wanted to make sure the exception was in here. That
the exception is right here.
Yeah, yeah. And the exception, okay. Yeah, yeah. As long as the exception is in there, I think it's not going to oversize the transformers. Because yeah, sorry. Because I think this software allows, well, I guess it depends on how you describe the word simultaneously charge all EVs. Is it, you know, I guess that's what I'm hung up on is, are we charging them all at 40 amps at the same time? Or does this software allow us to, within the code, to, you know, trickle charge some while you know, full charging others during building operation?
Well, I mean, this would be a minimum of 14 amps per EV. So it would be able to bring it down. So you'd be able to size theoretically to if you're using the load management to 16 amps instead of 40. But Caroline, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question, Joe, on that paragraph. You were just looking at it. You know, it says simultaneously charge at all EVs at all required EV ready and EV charging, but it does not mention the EV capable. So just a question if that additional column does in fact impact this.
Yes, it will. If we add the EV capable, yes, this language here will change and the exception will change. So the idea
thank you.
The idea here is you have 10% with EV chargers, and there is not an option to use the load management system for the EV charger. So you have 10 chargers installed, they need to work simultaneously. But for the EV ready, and if we add the EV capable, you can use the load management system. And this is the addition 16 amps, because with 16 amps, you will have 3.3 kilowatt hour for charging. And this was 3.3 was the onboard charger for the first electric vehicles that, you know, came up in 2011, 2012. I had one of those. This is how I knew the amperage.
Okay. Thank you, Stoyan. Micah.
So to tie into what Carolyn has for that section, I think we can modify that sentence to say the electrical service and electrical system instead of the electrical service and panel capacity. That redundant panel capacity is not needed. You actually say that after the comma. Pretty much the sentence would then say the electrical service and the electrical system, including any on-site distribution transformers, shall have sufficient capacity. So you can eliminate those two words.
The service is, so keep in mind that here we're talking about multifamily. So you most likely will have the electrical service at the property for the entire building, but you may also have feeders, sub panels that will have the electric vehicles tied to it. So this is the intent of this service or panel capacity.
No, I'm not arguing the intent, but the additional sub panels and whatever else is part of the electrical system, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
So again, it's redundant in two instances. I'm just recommending removing panel capacity in the first 5 words. It's not necessary.
Okay, what do you want to keep? The electrical system?
Keep the electrical service and the electrical system. Eliminate panel capacity. Perfect.
Okay.
All right. Anyone Anyone opposed to that? So we don't have to take into a bunch of individual motions. Speak up now if you are. All right. Any further discussion? So I guess since hopefully I don't have to vote on anything, I'll give my 2 cents again. I'm team hydrogen. I think that's our future personally. So that's why I'm a believer in just doing the bare minimum that's required, and the bare minimum is still a lot. So what I personally would have liked to see is if we go up to the option 3 and then change that last column to EV capable instead of EV ready. But that's just my 2 cents. So Micah, your hand is up.
Sorry, I should have lowered that.
Okay, any further discussion before someone makes a motion? All right, floor is open to make a motion. Actually, is there any public comment, any more public comment on what's been discussed? Go ahead, Kathleen.
Thank you. I just want to insert, thank you very much, Andrew. I just want to insert that the cost of retrofitting is it's pricey. And so if in fact, we've got affordable housing or whatnot that is built now, and in 10 years, all of our vehicles are turning to non-combustion engines, the amount to retrofit these buildings is going to be off the charts. So just want to throw that in there. So my vote is for EV ready versus EV capable on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion from anyone, including members of the public? Annabelle?
Hi, thanks. This is Annabelle Drain with the Northwest Energy Coalition. I was not planning to comment today, but I guess I just wanted to request that the cleaned up version gets posted online as soon as possible, because I find this like real-time editing to be very difficult to track as a member of the public. And so I would appreciate any materials posted online, after this meeting, so that members of the public can comment, and maybe some guidelines on how to comment, like the timeline for when comments would be helpful, so that stakeholders can have a clear expectation of how they can best weigh in a meaningful way.
All right, thank you, Annabelle. Stoyan, any comments on that other than
this proposal was done. I worked on it later last night, so there wasn't enough time to post it and have it available. It was a working document that I want to have for the council. I'm personally not a huge fan of this on-floor modifications, because I agree it's difficult to track, but the document wasn't available before yesterday late afternoon.
Okay, so yeah, we'll get everything up, and if you have individual questions, feel free to contact me or staff or both, and we'll get any questions answered. Go ahead, Shell.
Mr. Chair, so I guess if someone made a motion, eventually this will go into a CR 102 process, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. So instructions. So to anyone who wants to make public comment, this is not the last opportunity. If we vote something forward, we will go through a robust public comment process and debate it hotly in the future. So with that, I'll make a motion to move forward with option 4.
Give me just 1 second. Let me make sure there's no more public comment. But yes, you've got the floor to make the motion. Any more public comment?
Andrew, I believe there's a couple of public comments in the chat. One of them from Mr. Andrews. Make sure it's not part of this discussion, or if it is, we need to address those, please.
Okay, Larry Andrews asked, how does the electric use by these outlets, who will pay for this energy? He asked, how can you even think of this? I think at that point when he asked that, we were discussing amperages and load management. Said that NEC is going to make you do what is required by the electrical code no matter what. Any comments on Larry's comments? And then Andrea Smith said it'll be included during CR 102 for code 1, right? Public comment can come during that process if so. So yes, that's what Shell just said to confirm that. And then Leah asked, edits possible during CR 102 prior to CR 103 are limited. Any comment? Leah, did you want to go ahead?
Yeah, happy to sort of clarify and ask, but my understanding of the rulemaking process, having participated in it in other venues like with the Department of Ecology, is that once a CR 102 is published, any edits that are deemed substantive cannot be made prior to CR 103. It's only more minor edits. So I just wanted to put that out there and ask you all, because I am wary that the public might not be able to weigh in the regard that might be for a better process. And they should be able to prior to CR 102 in order to weigh in if there's any substantive comments or not. So I just wanted to put that out there. If your rulemaking process is anything similar to other agencies, there's a very fine parameter as to what can happen between CR 102 and CR 103.
Yeah, I think you are right. Yeah, anything substantive. I would consider, if we adopt 3 columns or 4 columns and we go to a different number of columns, I wouldn't think that would be too substantive. But yeah, I mean, everything will be up for debate and potential legal action. Stoyan, any comments?
It was a correct statement. Yes, we cannot make substantive changes, but we will have the time during and after the comment period to evaluate our comments and testimonies. And if there is something that we need to take and pay special attention, then we have 1 more year for this proposal. Again, I prefer to have it in the CR 102 and post it for comments now. But if it's needed, we can extend the process.
All right, thank you. Any more public comments? All right, Shell, you were making the motion, correct? If I remember correctly.
Yes, yeah, apologies for jumping in early on that.
No, don't worry about it. Go ahead, floor is yours.
I will make a motion to go with option 4 on this specific question before the council.
Second, Jay Arnold.
Thank you, Shell. Thank you, Jay. Everyone understand the motion? Is there discussion on the motion? All right, we'll do a roll call. We'll do a roll call vote unless there are a bunch of nays. If there are, then we'll do we'll do a voice vote unless there are a bunch of nays, in which case we'll do a roll call vote. So all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? And motion passes. All right, Stoyan, back to you.
Well, if motion passes, then I will update this document. I will send it to all council members just for another set of eyes, and we will post it on the website. So for the public to look it up.
All righty.
Question is, yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Joe.
So I guess the process for this is within the normal code update CR 102 process, or is it outside of that process because it's a legislative direction?
It's a statutory mandate, but we want to keep it with this code adoption process. Again, if there are issues with it, we can run it through additional off-cycle rulemaking, but we want to keep it into this code adoption process. So it will
be part of the CR 102 that's filed in that.
That's correct. Yes, because it was introduced late in the game, I wasn't ready to post it. So I will modify it and I will have it for the public to look it up.
All right, thank you. Al, go ahead, your hand's up.
So are you keeping the record open so that the public can provide written testimony on the changes we've made here, or are you going to be closing testimony on this today?
Well, we will open formally the testimony when we submit it with the CR 102. Or
Okay.
when we file it with the CR 102. I will have it on the website because currently we don't have the final version. So if it's something minor, editorial, those kind of things, we can modify. But I will try to align within within your vote, your recommendation, your direction, actually.
Well, and when you post it, if you could put some kind of projected timeline on when comments, would be expected, that would be helpful for the public, so they have some kind of an expectation on how they got to get them in.
Posting it on the website, I don't want to open the Pandora's box and get 500-600 comments again, because it will be part of the comment period with the rest of the proposals. We will end up with some additional information for the website, clarification, why we have it posted and what we were expecting. If this is what you're asking.
Well, I mean, if somebody from the public wanted to get a copy of the audio tape of this, they would have access to what we've said, what we've done today. So what's the difference between getting a copy of the audio tape or getting a copy of the amendments that we've made?
The amendments will be on the website. This is what I said at the beginning. I will modify this proposal because it's a mess, different options and stuff. I will make it comply with your direction, and we will have it on the website for the public to see the final result of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Al. Micah?
Al, another day, I agree with you. We need to have this out for the public to view, but I'm a little confused. Did we vote to move this forward to CR 102? I thought we just voted on the options that would be available for the public to review. If we're moving it to something further, wouldn't we have to take an action on that to do that?
Yeah. Stoyan, do we need to vote now on moving it forward to 102, or do we still have time?
I would agree with Micah that I don't agree with him very often, but I do this time, that we need.
Oh, yes, you do.
We're not in public.
we need a final vote on that if we are moving into a CR 102, because if we leave it for the meeting in January, it will be late.
Okay, so yeah, thank you, Micah, again. Al, your hand's up. Is it again or still? Okay, Shell?
I'll make a motion to move the entire EV proposal or whatever we want to call it, proposal as modified and approved by as modified by the council today, forward into the CR 102 process.
Thank you, Shell.
Second. Jay.
Thank you, Jay. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed?
Yeah, I'm opposed.
Thank you, Al. Anyone else opposed? All right, motion passes. Okay, so thank you. That was a lot of work, so thank you for that. We are now on to the work group on economic impact.
I will share my screen again. I guess I needed the permission for Christopher. Sorry, Krista. So what the work group of economic impact, what you have here is some text from our bylaws. And this is for the technical advisory group, and this is for the work group on economic impact. What we're doing now is we are developing the preliminary cost-benefit analysis. We are using the data provided by the proponents, and we will adding some additional text, references, clarifications, and we will have this preliminary cost-benefit analysis when we are filing the CR 102 for all codes. This includes for Group 1 the Energy Code, International Building Code, International Fire Code. And we are having discussions with the third party. We're almost very close to signing a contract, and this third party will work on the final cost-benefit analysis. I want to ask the council if it's a good idea to have the work group on economic impact start working and discussing the cost benefits for energy code and for all codes. Regarding the energy code, we will ask the work group on economic impact to review the preliminary cost benefit analysis and the cost benefit analysis prepared by the third party I was talking about. So the third party will be moving target. The work group on economic impact will be able to see the process and ask questions if needed. For the rest of the codes, we don't have that many issues, but it's a good idea if we have this work group on economic impact overseeing the process. This is my short introduction.
All right, thank you, Stoyan. Any questions and comments so far? All right, does anyone disagree with the proposal here that the tag chairs, be put together into a new work group? All right, Stoyan, did you
see
any action or anything? Oh, go ahead, Michael. Thank you.
I'm not opposed to it. I guess my question is, Stoyan, could you provide us with an anticipated level of time commitment for this? This is additional work beyond our chair responsibilities for each tag, but do you have any idea on that or no?
I have some idea, but I don't want to lie unintentionally. We were planning, well, at least I was planning to have the first meeting in December. And I don't have experience with this group, so I don't know if the council have used this group before. I know in 2018 it wasn't used. I saw a report in 2015 for this from this work group on economic impact, but I have no idea how the process was, if it was beneficial or not. So this is why I wanted to have this discussion at the council meeting. If it makes sense to have this group, to make this group working group and make this group help us with the code adoption, with the filing of the documents. I'm not sure if this is what you wanted to hear, but my idea. Yes,
that's fine. I think this could be a very significant amount of work depending on what directions we go under item 2 and where we acquire some of this outside expertise to some extent. I mean, I'm not an expert in energy code policy at all. And so I'm not sure that I'm going to necessarily be the best person to determine the economic analysis for this. I could agree to reviewing something, but I do have some concerns about building or finding that information. So that's it. Thanks.
For the energy code, we have the outside expertise.
Yeah. So yeah, I think Micah, this will be overviewing stuff more so. You know, we're working on getting the budget, the outside expertise on all that, but eventually, you know, it's got to come through some funnel mechanism to get up to the council. So I think it makes sense that all the tag chairs be involved in something.
No, that makes sense. I just, you know, I already have enough people that probably don't like me. So telling them whether or not something costs a lot of money may make it a lot worse. So thanks.
Shell, go ahead.
It just as a context, the MVE committee has reviewed and worked with consultants on analysis of the energy code in the past. And so that's I guess a precedent for working with a consultant, and I guess that I think that worked pretty well. I agree that convening this group to the extent that we can have an outside expert and simply be reviewing their work is a good idea.
Thank you, Shell. Corey?
Yeah, just speaking for the group that may or may not like Micah, just wondering, again, like, what are we thinking for a time commitment, and would we want to do it prior to our normal meeting so that if there's information to relay, the staff has time to put it in order? I'm just kind of trying to figure out, what is that going to be? Is it a day, a month? Is it how much time are we talking about? I just would like to get a ballpark.
Let's start with once per week, and I want to exclude that. So it won't be once per week. So once per month, maybe.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
If I had to guess, yeah, it'd probably be, you know, a handful of meetings, and then, you know, it's not going to be necessary all throughout the year. So if I had to guess, an uneducated guess, maybe 6-7 times a year total. But Corey,
we will start in December. Because we will be done with the filing with the CR 102, so we will have the preliminary cost benefit analysis. So that's the first step. You know, we will have it available for this group to take a look.
Okay.
We won't have time to convene the group and have this group review the preliminary cost benefit analysis for group 1, because we'll be late.
Okay. Any Stoyan, these will be open public meetings, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, good. Go ahead, Micah.
There's a question in the chat on this topic.
Thank you. Andrea asked, at what point will third-party cost-benefit analyses be published, before or after CR 102? Curious because using just the proponent's cost-benefit analysis can be somewhat problematic since they could have skin in the game. So we're working on those now. They're required to be published prior to CR 103. So
we have, sorry, Andrew, to cut you off, apologize.
Yeah, go ahead.
We have preliminary cost benefit analysis, which is required for the CR 102. We are required to have it available. And we will have the final cost benefit analysis, which will be developed before the CR 103 is filed and after the council adopts the code, whatever code it is. So after the council votes on the adoption, we need some time to prepare the CR 103 and file it. So,
but specific to third-party cost benefit analyses was the question.
This will be the third-party cost benefit analysis. Yes.
Okay, so we'll have that prior to this CR 102.
No.
Okay.
I'll start again. Now we are working on the CR 102, and for the CR 102, staff will develop the cost benefit analysis using the data from the proponents. The reason is we are not the specialists here. We didn't develop these proposals. We didn't work on them. We didn't do the research. We will use the proponents, and we'll have 2 months of comment period, and we'll our stakeholders will have the chance to comment on the proposals and on the cost benefit analysis. After that, the third party will be working with us, will be evaluating the comments and the testimony, will be evaluating the proponents' proposals, and they will have a final report. This report will be like a interim report for the council members, and they will develop the final cost-benefit analysis when the code is adopted. If
okay,
this was the question.
Okay, Andrea, is that detailed enough? Brian Fowler said several comments were submitted during the tag process refuting the economic analyses of proponents. How will these be incorporated? So those, you know, have been incorporated through public comments and will continue to be incorporated through public comments, and they'll be incorporated by the third parties who will consider that when they do their independent analyses. Stoyan, correct me if I said anything wrong. Okay. Peter,
can I just respond to that tag question for the?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the tag listened to lots of testimony and in the end voted in certain directions. And so what individual tag members heard and agreed with or didn't agree with, I can't say. But in the end, the tag listened to lots and lots of testimony and voted in a certain direction. So I think it was incorporated to the extent that that everybody was heard. And if someone, you know, poked holes in it, everybody heard that because all the tag members were present. I think there was one that was only one that was unresolved, and that was the Nicholas Garcia and the solar industry, and the tag did move forward on that, but I feel like there's still that was unresolved in my mind. But I think the rest of it, the tag moved forward on. So, yeah.
All right, thank you. So, and then Peter echoed the concerns about not having third-party analyses ready by the CR 102 submission. You know, just, I don't know, in the future, do you think we're going to try to get third-party analyses prior to CR 102, or I mean, we're required prior to CR 103, so we're meeting requirements, but are we, you know, or that's for another discussion, Stoyan?
Keep in mind again that the council is in a kind of awkward position. We are required to comply with this Administrative Procedure Act, which includes the cost-benefit analysis, but the council is not the entity developing these proposals. So for us, the best case scenario was, and it is, to use the proponents and get some feedback on this cost-benefit analysis, and then, you know, using this feedback or third party prepare the final cost-benefit analysis. If we, it's possible to use a third party even for the preliminary cost-benefit analysis, but this kind of defeats the purpose of having the comment period in the testimonies.
Makes sense. So, all right. Any other public comments on this? Stoyan, did you want a vote on this, or we don't need one?
Well, if you can vote on, you know, convene the work group on economic impact.
Yeah, we can do that. So yeah, is there a motion to either, you know, convene the work group on economic impact, or to not? I guess those would be the two options. Shell.
I guess if we didn't convene the work group on economic analysis, it would be staff working with the third party. Are those the two main options we're working with? Either staff works with a third party or the work group on economic analysis.
Yeah, it'd be staff, and then it'd come through messy. I don't recommend that. I'm just saying that's an option since we're voting. But yeah, I guess staff who's already overworked would, you know, be taking that on, as opposed to us spearheading it and then handing them hopefully more bite-sized things. So
I guess I'm not excited about more responsibility, but as but I think it would be good to convene this group to oversee the work of the third party. So I'll make a motion that we convene the group at least a couple of times to help define and refine the third party cost benefit analysis or economic analysis or whatever that scope is in the contract.
All right, thank you, Sean. And I'm going to back that up just to, we're convening it, and then, any further decisions on schedule, that'll be made later on. But is that okay?
We will be working on the schedule.
So okay, thank you, Sal. Is there a second to that motion?
This is Caroline. I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Caroline. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed?
Yeah, I'm opposed. This Al French.
Thank you, Al. Do you want to add any commentary since you didn't speak up during discussion or not?
Well, as for those that have been around for a while, I've been challenged by how we go about doing life cycle costing, and how it is not supported by the private sector. It's only supported by Department of Commerce and stuff. And so I was hoping that with this outside consultant, we'd have something that would be a little bit more reliable, and it doesn't sound like it's going to go in that direction. So that was my concern.
Okay. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. We're just convening a group to manage that. I think we'll still have third parties and all, and then just, it's the mechanism for that information to flow in and out. But yeah, we'll see as things go, and, massage processes as they occur. Shell, did you mean to have your hand up still? So was there anyone else opposed to the motion? So motion passes. Any further discussion on this item? Micah?
I didn't have further discussion, but I was going to request that we could take a break.
Yeah, can we bring the agenda back up?
I know we've only got a couple more items. One of those would be the other business item for me. And yeah, a break would be great.
All right. Where are we? Economic impact. And yeah, we just have a couple. So I'll tell you what, let's take an 8-minute break. We'll come back at 12:30. Is that enough time for you, Micah, since you're requesting? Al, your hand's still up.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that's another thing that Micah and I agree on.
Okay, excellent. Okay, yeah, if 8 minutes isn't enough for anyone, speak up right now. Okay, 12:30.
Thanks, Al.
The recordings. So, all right, thank you and welcome back. So we are now on the Pierce County Residential Amendment Approval Request.
It was discussed at the meeting in October, and this is the new modified version. Micah also was helping with the language. I don't know if Jeff is here or
yeah,
we can.
Jeff's here, so
yeah.
Jeff, did you want to take over?
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon, everyone. And for the record, I do like Micah. He was very helpful in this endeavor, and I'm typically not a code writer, and so he, as I say, that was very helpful on his suggestions. We discussed this then with council and the exec, and we're happy with the revision and would we'd be pleased if we could move forward with this amendment today.
All right, thank you. Any discussion?
So I guess I can throw my 2 cents in, since I've had 10 cents all day. I appreciate the coordination with Jeff and his team on this. Like I said before, I'm not opposed to putting something in the residential code, and this just goes to show that I think that there is some viable language that can be put in there. And it's nice to see that Pierce County is going to take the step and do that for their own purposes. And maybe we could see this in the future statewide. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
And I suppose the only thing I would add is that this would, it's a very strong, within our 2030, sustainability plan, very strong opinion from council and support from the community in order to see this be there as part of that, at least a beginning for the infrastructure for EVs. And we see that as, one of the future options for transportation.
Thank you, Jeff. Does everyone remember the discussion from last time and what we sent Jeff back to work on? If not, then ask up and we can clarify anything prior to making any motions. Is there any discussion, including from the public? All right. If anyone wants to make a motion, then go ahead, Al.
Yeah. This is where one of these requirements that we do by code that is contrary to affordable housing initiatives that I think every city across the state is challenged with and stuff. And so I know particularly here in Spokane County, it's an additional cost, and so I'm going to be voting no on it. It's those that can afford an electric vehicle, this is not an issue. But when you talk about low income and communities of color, they're not going out and buying Teslas. And this is just going to make it more challenging for them to get into residential ownership and stuff. And so I'm going to be voting no on it.
All right. Thank you, Al. Any other discussion? Jeff, did you want to respond? You don't have to.
Yeah, I really don't have a response. I know that there are a lot of other options other than the vehicle as mentioned. So, and many, the rideshare vehicles, et cetera, are dependent on being able to charge that. Having been a electric EV owner for some time, I can see the value. I appreciate the point. It does add a cost, but we think that as we move forward with more EV type vehicles, that it's better to be prepared. I think one of the earlier comments I heard in the discussion is it's a lot harder to retrofit than it is to prepare ahead. And this is that, let's have that in advance instead of trying to retrofit and have someone else bear that cost.
Thank you, Jeff. Any further discussion, including members of the public?
Andrea had a comment in the chat.
Okay. Yeah, Andrea, feel free to speak up too if you want, but I'll read what you said in the chat. Updates on utility side infrastructure, if inadequate, can be in excess of $20,000. Keep that in mind when assessing cost benefit analyses. This will impact home ownership. So hopefully your city council factored everything in, and they had their open public meetings and considered.
They did, isn't it? Yeah, definitely.
Any further discussion? Shel?
I guess when these things come before the council, is the council simply tasked with approving them from a technical perspective, from a coordination perspective, or from any other perspectives?
My understanding is only simply from the perspective of whether or not it meets, I think, the 5 or 6 allowable reasons to have a local amendment. So the reason stated in this, Jeff, do you remember which reason you're using?
I'm using the, oh gosh, I don't remember if it is not, I can't open my other screen. I'm sorry.
It's on the screen under number 8. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Stoyan.
Yeah. But as far as technical, that's why we sent Jeff back, I believe, you know, to
exactly, to get the structure of
concerns that we did have. Al, go ahead.
Yeah, as I mentioned at our last meeting, and I'll reiterate it again now, we're pushing part of my housing inventory for new construction into Kootenai County, which is, you know, we've been able to identify that this is what the impact is. So I've got more cars on the road, and a lot of those that are moving into Kootenai County are not at the upper end of the scale or even the median end of the scale. So I've got cars that are not Teslas that are on the highway, putting pollution in the air. And while Spokane County is fighting to keep good air in the county, this is working counter to our efforts and stuff. And so, you know, I appreciate that Pierce County can do it because they're not sitting right next to Idaho. But for us, this is driving us in the wrong direction. We're not only pushing housing out of the state, we're pushing all of the revenue generated by the jobs that these people employ out in Spokane County. They're taking that money and spending it in Idaho. So, you know, one solution doesn't fit all. And so I'll just continue to beat on this drum. Thanks.
Thanks, Al. Just to be clear, this is a local amendment just for Pierce County here. Any further discussion? Let's see, Larry Andrews stated we are getting the cost high, so the people are not able to buy a home anymore, just more, any more cost to the point it has become hard to own a home. Any
Krista just highlighted the requirements for the local amendments. This is from the WAC.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion or comments? Would anyone like to make a motion?
This is Micah. I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Micah. Jay, you want a second?
Thanks.
All righty. Discussion. All right, we've got a motion on the table. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed?
Nay.
Thanks, Al. Anyone else? All right, the motion passes.
Thank you, gentlemen. And
Jeff,
I
enjoy your retirement.
I was going to say,
right?
Yeah, right. I mentioned last meeting, I think 8 days away from retirement, so that this is a box I wanted to be able to check so that I pass that on to our community and for the benefit of all of the citizens in Pierce County. Thanks again.
Congratulations and enjoy your retirement.
All right, thank you.
All right, other business. So Micah, would you like to begin? I know you had an item on other business.
Sure. Would one of the staff members, I'm not sure who's controlling, if it's Krista, would you be able to bring up that document I emailed earlier this morning?
I have it open, Krista, if you can let me share it.
Okay. So just a little background, and if some fire marshal folks are on, I know Tony had to leave, unfortunately, but if maybe Dave Cocott or any of the other fire marshals are on. How this came about is they approached me, invited me to a meeting. We're working on legislation to update the smoke control system, smoke dampers, inspections, and requirements and things of that nature. And when I first looked at the legislation, I made some recommendations to them about what we would like to see. Their legislation has a lot of support, and as you can see through this letter, I'm not going to read the letter to everyone unless you want me to. But the legislation has a lot of support, and I anticipate it moving forward. But what they had in that legislation is it tasked the State Building Code Council to make code modifications to meet their requirements. One of the things they really want to do is have this in place with the next code cycle. I was trying to push back on their legislation to not have code requirements in the legislation, and that's how it was originally written, and it was fairly long. So I recommended to them some significant modifications, and then to provide the State Building Code Council with the recommended code changes they would like to see. What they're requesting in this letter is that we leave, and we still have some time, but is that we either allow them to submit code modifications to these sections of the IBC and the IFC, even though they were part of Group 1, but have them go through in a timely manner so they will be part of the next code cycle and be published in the book, instead of having an off-cycle rule pushed by legislation. And so that's what this letter is requesting, is that we have the authority to do so, is to maintain certain things open from Group 1 and through the Group 2 process. And so that's what this letter from them is requesting. And I told them I would just bring this topic up today. We don't need to vote on it today. Like I said, this was a last minute letter from them that we wanted to bring forward to the council and make them aware of the situation and the legislation that's coming out. And I was really hoping to not have the SBCC do so much work in an off-cycle rule, and to hopefully get that group or organization to get those code changes to us, and we could get them in to this next code cycle and have them effective under the timeline. Their legislation would have a similar timeline if we don't, so we would still have to do that work, and then it will be an off-cycle rule, and that's a whole nother process that I know Stoyan is not a fan of, neither am I. But that's the request, and hopefully we can get this sent out to the council members, and maybe at the next meeting we can take action on this or make some further recommendations.
Thank you, Micah. Stoyan, do you want to respond to that? I know that, you know, I want whatever is the least amount of work for staff if we do make any decisions. So what do you want to comment on what that would be?
Well, if the task is not to make any decision today and just for informational purposes, then it's
yep,
right.
Yep.
We will have it in the agenda for the January meeting.
Okay, and then you'll think about what your recommendation is. I'd like for
yes,
yeah, please.
I need to do some extra research regarding, you know, what we can pass between Group 1 and Group 2.
Okay, yeah, and please tell us what you would like to do as staff so we can consider that. Obviously, the motion and what passes will be what the council decides, but you know, I'm very interested in what staff thinks on that. So
I will also request of them to possibly provide the legislative language. Like I said, originally it was 6 or 8 pages long, and I think now we've got it down to about 3 pages, which just provides some overall direction and not have so much work directed to the SBCC to develop the actual code changes. So we'll look forward to the next week.
So you're saying you want it just posted for the discussion, correct?
I think so. Let me verify that that is ready. But either way, this letter kind of lays it out. And then I know they have a lot of this code language already done and developed. And again, they were going to put a lot of that into the legislation, and I really steered them away from that because we all have agreed that legislators should probably not write the code.
Okay. Yeah, I see no reason. If you supply Stoyan with what documents you want put up, you can put those up so it's all there together.
Andrew, this is Ray. I have a quick question. Micah or Dave or whoever's online. I know that part of the legislation was to work with the state fire marshal's office. Was that done when this code was written, or has this been ran by them?
They're the ones that have actually been working on this.
Not the Fire Marshals Association, but the Washington State Patrol Fire Marshals.
I don't have that answer. Hopefully,
okay. All right.
Somebody else can get it to you. That's why I was hoping Tony was on, because I know he's been a part of this.
Yeah, he wanted to stay on. He just had other commitment.
Okay. Well, thanks for bringing it up, and yeah, we'll get it on January's meeting, and we'll get any associated documents that you'd like put up there put up so we can discuss it. Any further discussion on that issue? Any other business? Micah.
Always me. I just wanted to mention that we are starting up the IRC tag meetings, and we still have some openings on that. I know that we did have an application for that, for an opening, but I'm not sure if we can find a place for that individual just yet. But I do want to encourage the folks on the line to review those openings for the IRC tag, see if we can fill that. That way we can have some additional help getting all that work done in a short time frame. Thanks.
Thank you, Micah. Yeah, and that goes for all the tags. We've got open seats, so the more the merrier. If you or any of your industry associates want to be involved in the code development process, that's a great way. Andrea.
Yeah, thank you. I was curious what all the vacancies were, because it's a little bit hard to find on the website, and I have reached out to a few of the tag chairs, so I was just curious if that can be posted somewhere where we can see all of the vacancies so that we can help out with getting more industry folks involved. And then I also had a process question. So somebody brought up earlier that the CR 102 process only allows for a limited opportunity to make changes to proposals that are submitted. So I was just kind of curious if somebody could clarify like what happens if in public comment, the public is urging more significant changes to be made to the proposed codes, and like what the process was for dealing with that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. Stoyan, do you want to respond, or do you want me to?
Yes. So if it's a significant change and the council agrees to move forward with it, it needs to move back to stage 1 and have it open for another public comment period. If it's group 1, we may have the time, but if it's in group 2, I don't think we'll have another 60 days available for another public comment period. So it's not written specifically, but the council's choice will be to withdraw it or move forward with the whatever was proposed.
All right. And regarding the tag vacancies, is that posted anywhere? Can you shoot that out as an email?
We can post. I'll try to. We'll do our best to post those on the website. I get emails with requests almost every day, so I'm sending it to everybody, and I think I send it to Andrea too. But we'll try to make it available on the website.
Okay. And Andrea, if you know of someone, usually a lot of the positions are malleable. We can, if someone wants to be involved, we can try to find a way to fit them into a position. Shell, before we get to you, Larry said he has some questions. How does he get answers? Larry, correct me if I'm wrong. You asked who chooses the third party for cost benefit analyses. That'll be done by staff, correct, Stoyan?
Well, can you repeat the question again?
Who chooses the third party for the cost benefit analyses?
Staff.
Okay, staff. And then Larry, I didn't see any other questions. You did have some comments and I read them all. But yeah, feel free to type in, or if you've got your access to your mic back, speak up. Shell, go ahead.
Yeah, so regarding the energy code residential tag, the document that is posted is incorrect in a couple of areas. And I think I've sent Andrea an email pointing out the vacancies. I've been working through that, and I'm going to send staff a corrected list soon. But I went back to the list that the council approved last year, or I think it was middle of last year, June or so, rather than, and that's different than what is on the website as the tag spots. So I'm correcting that. I'm going through all the emails I've received for applicants and trying to figure that out so I can send an email to get that tag openings and filled positions revised. Hopefully I'll send that by the end of the day today.
Yeah, thank you, Shell. Any other business? Shell, your hand's still up or up again?
Oops.
Still up. All right, one last time for other business before we move on to staff report. Stoyan, floor is yours.
Is it? Okay. I have only one. Krista, can you let me share the screen? Thank you. This is in addition to what I already said, that we're working on the CR 102s. It's too much work for a limited time, so we are doing our best. So be patient with us if we make mistakes. Sometimes it's not intentional. And moving to what you see on your screen, if you remember, 2 meetings ago, the council directed the council chair and the managing director to craft a letter to the legislature asking for more funding. And this is a very rough draft. And I wanted to make it available for our council members. Chell worked on it. Andrew provided some suggestions. So here is the text. I think a DES government relations team make some minor edits. And this is the text that we want to address to the House and the Senate.
Thank you, Stoyan. So it's concise. It lets the legislature know that we are working on, our new budget proposals that has to work its way through the governor's office.
And this is just the text. It's not a formal document yet. But when we are ready to send it, we'll have it in a letterhead, and we'll do everything that's needed.
All right. Any questions or comments?
Looks good to me.
Micah, go ahead.
Is the entirety of what we can see on the screen, that's the language?
Yes, that's the one. It's very, very short. We intentionally didn't go to a longer document because currently we're working with the governor's office and we are asking for more funding already, but we don't have anything specific. So we didn't want to go into specifics in this simple letter.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I'm processing what you said and why you want it short. I think the only thing I was considering was sentence 3 on why the building codes are updated. Really only alludes to new items, new advancements, material innovations. But I think that we, I know you don't want to go into more depth, but of course we evaluate the codes for their current effectiveness and whether or not they need to be modified, not just for advancements in materials and new findings and things like that. But I understand you're trying to keep it short, but I want to make sure that that is somehow clarified. Would be my 2 cents. You don't have to change anything, but just a recommendation.
I'd say an amendment or deletion of something due to it being obsolete is the same as a change due to advancements. But go ahead, Stoyan. Sorry.
I didn't want to have specifics related to what we're asking for. But related to the text, of course, we can add more. I just didn't want to provide specifics, what we're asking for. I didn't want to provide numbers because it's a moving target. That's all. But what Micah is saying, we can make it bigger. We can add stuff to it.
Any other comments?
I appreciate the work. I think it looks good overall.
Thanks, Micah. And thank you, Stoyan and Shell, for all your work on it. Any additional comments on that? So Larry, he did have one more question we didn't answer. He said, how does the electric use by the outlets that we're putting into R3s, who will pay for the energy? And my answer to that would be that's outside the scope of the building code. So I guess whoever the owner of the property decides. Any further comments on that? Tom Young asked, what's the date for the January meeting? Also, will the public hearings be held in person or virtually? Good questions, Tom. I don't know the answer to those. So
we don't have a date for the January meeting yet, but looking at the current calendar, January 14th or January 21st, one of these. There are pros and cons for each date, but we'll decide on the specific date when we file the CR 102s.
Okay. Any other comment, public or otherwise?
I was going to request that you not make it the 21st of January. There is a holiday that week, and I know some folks take time off that week, including myself. So just a request. Doesn't have to be that way, but that is a request. Maybe you want to have a meeting without me. I don't know.
If we have the electric vehicle proposal, maybe 21st is a good date.
That's excellent. Thanks, Stoyan.
All right. Anything else? Andrea thanked all of us, and I'd like to thank everyone, including members of the public who come in and are involved in code development. It is, you know, it's supposed to be a consensus process, and I think for the most part it is. So we couldn't do it without everyone's help. So thank you. Anything else for the good of the order? All right, let's adjourn.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving. Have a great weekend. And yeah, if you're getting snow, I think some places are, and enjoy that.
All right. Thanks, Steph.
Be safe.
Good morning. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.